Financial Argument. Follow us on YouTube.
Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, at this point, everyone is starting to realize that the Fed, it does not work for the people. It works for themselves. It works for profit. It works for debt. It works for control of the people. And it seems like the Federal Reserve in Dallas may be involved in some unethical activities in regards to banks. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that the Fed works with the banking system works with the Fed to help each other out and not help the people whatsoever. But the story began back in January when the website Zero Hedge, which I know many of you know what Zero Hedge is, tweeted out an interesting note that they heard that the Houston office of the Dallas Fed met with some banks to push them on their dealings with energy industry. And the Dallas Fed had met with these banks and advised them to cover up major energy-related losses. Now, the Dallas Fed refused to comment on the story. They rejected all of this. They said, no, this is not true whatsoever. And a couple of days later, the story went all over the internet, and the corporate media at this point had no choice but to start looking into it because it was gaining traction. And it looks like the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, started to look into it, and everything that Zero Hedge has said has come true. And we can see right now that the Fed is manipulating banks, manipulating information on the bank's balance sheet, manipulating pretty much everything. Now, if we bring that all the way up to the Federal Reserve, to the central banking system, they've been doing this for a long time, because we see now that they've been manipulating LIBOR, they've been manipulating gold and silver, which has just come out, and they pretty much manipulate everything. Everything is a product of the central bank. All the manipulation, the illusion, the bubbles. And this is why it's time to end the Fed. It does not serve the interest of the people. It serves themselves. And we can see right now that they need to do this because their system that they depend on, that brings them a huge amount of wealth, is falling apart. And this is why we see all across the world they're implementing 0% interest rate, negative rates. And of course, the IMF is trying to convince everyone that negative interest rates is good for them. And whenever these people, government officials, bankers, central bankers come out and tell us that this is good for you, we know it's the opposite. But we see Denmark, Belgium, and now the Netherlands, they're pushing negative mortgage rates. And it is spreading across Europe right now because this is their only alternative at this point. Because as the system continually breaks apart, they can't have interest rates moving up because the debt cannot be sustained. Everything is completely falling apart at this time. And we see a lot of countries, they're starting to realize this. They're starting to realize that the dollar is in its end game right now. And we see China right now making bilateral trade agreements with many, many different countries. We see the yuan becoming a reserve currency. The yuan is going to be backed by gold. We see Hungary, they announced that they're going to be the first Eastern European country to issue a yuan-denominated sovereign bond. We also see South Korea doing this. We see Nigeria, which last week also said they're going to do the same exact thing. And this is starting to spread amongst countries because they're starting to realize that we need to get away from the dollar. And we see Russia's doing it, China's doing it, India's doing it. Iran is going to be selling their oil not in the dollar. The other countries where the people are rising up, they are not going to sell the oil reserves using the dollar. They're going to be using other currencies, gold, silver, whatever they're going to use to barter or to sell their oil reserves. And this is really starting to spread all over the world at this point because we realize that the dollar is coming to an end, and the central bankers, the U.S. government, know this at this point. Now, we talk about Obamacare quite a bit, and companies now are looking at Obamacare, and a lot of them, we saw United Healthcare saying, something we're going to need to get out of this. And we're seeing a lot more companies saying that they might be ditching their participation in the marketplace, and they're going to have to increase prices dramatically, because what they're seeing right now is that Obamacare, once this was implemented, they are losing a lot of money rapidly. And this is a huge problem. And we're starting to see that insurance companies are saying, we might have to invoke that bailout clause because this is not working out. And a lot of people are not joining up to Obamacare. It is way too expensive. The premiums are skyrocketing, and they're looking at another increase and also raising the deductibles once again. The CEO of insurance provider Aetna continues to have serious concerns about the sustainability of the public exchanges. A report issued by the Blue Cross Blue Shield found health insurers gained a sicker, more expensive patient population once Obamacare went into effect. And what we're seeing at this point is that Obamacare is a complete disaster. It was never created for the people. It was never created as a benefit for the people. It was created as a revenue system to bring in tax dollars into the government, to bring in revenue into the insurance companies. And if you look how this whole thing was structured, they structured it where the people would get the least amount of benefit and the people would have to pay the most into Obamacare. And the insurance companies protected themselves by having a bailout clause if it didn't work out. And this is how we can see that this was never meant for the people, because as soon as it was created and they said, oh yes, people have to start signing up, we saw Congress, Obama, the staffers, all exempt from Obamacare. Now, if it's so incredibly great, they should have been the first ones to say, listen, I'm signing up. But guess what? It didn't happen. Now, we understand that the FBI, they were pushing for months with this lawsuit against Apple to get the encryption keys so they can get into the San Bernardino's iPhone, which was a work phone, by the way. So they finally dropped the case against Apple. They hacked into the phone using an Israeli company. And of course, John McAfee already proved that it's very easy to hack into the phone once you have the physical device. So they hacked into the phone, and you know what they found so far? After 2 weeks of searching through it? Absolutely nothing. Because we understand that this operation was a complete false flag operation. And we knew that these two people had nothing to do with it. They were the patsies. And this was a work phone. And if they can't find anything within the last 2 weeks, I mean, how much data do you think is on this phone? I mean, the iPhones either come as, 8 gig, I think this was a 5C, an 8 gig, 16 gig, or 32 gig. There's not that much information on the phone in the first place, because most of it is the operating system. A lot of it is probably pictures or music, and then you have the rest of the space. So there's really not that much information they really have to go through. So if they haven't found anything right now, they're never going to find anything, unless they make something up and they say, oh yes, this was on here. But at this point, it looks like it's a dead end, which we all knew from the beginning, because we knew their agenda was to get the keys to the kingdom to access all encryption. That was their agenda. Now, out in Syria, we see the parliamentary elections. Their turnout was above 57%, which is very good in a war-torn country. And we see right now that the Syrian opposition, they are rejecting the offer over a transitional period, because what the offer is from Assad's government is that Assad's going to stay in power, and during the transitional period, the opposition would choose 3 vice presidents. And the opposition said, absolutely not. We're not going to do this at all, because we want Assad removed. We're not going to wait, 18 months for the elections to come up to vote Assad in or out of power. This is not going to work for us. So the opposition right now is saying that even though we have a ceasefire and peace talks right now, we might start attacking Assad's forces. So basically, it looks like they're going to be breaking the ceasefire if they go ahead and do this. But what's very interesting about the statements from Mohammed Aloush, who is the opposition leader, he is saying that Assad is going to leave office in 4 months. Now, this is very interesting, 4 months, because we're in April right now. 4 months brings us to August. And we have seen in the last 3 years something happen during the August month. the sarin gas attack, the Islamic State coming into the Middle East in Syria and Iraq, the bombing of Syria just last year. And now here we are again because we know Congress is in recess at this time. And this is when Obama, the administration, the neocons really work. And it's funny how they said 4 months, because that leads us right up to the point where Congress goes on recess, everyone leaves, and Obama pretty much has the reign of the entire situation, and he can do whatever he wants at that point, because who's going to question him? Because no one does anything until after Labor Day. So it looks like they're preparing for that same scenario, for their plan to go active at that point. And this is what we need to watch very, very carefully. Now, we see it's all over the internet, all over the corporate media, that Congress is trying to push a bill before the Senate, and it's to clarify that the immunity enjoyed by foreign nationals should not be applicable to cases where a nation is found responsible for a terrorist attack on American soil. Now, the U.S. is out there saying that we have these 28 pages that Saudi Arabia did 9/11, and they're continually saying this, oh, we're not going to release them, we are going to release them, we're not going to release them, and it looks like President Obama is going to say, listen, if this bill is passed, I'm going to veto it. And Saudi Arabia has come out and said, okay, if these 28 pages are released, we're going to destroy the economy of the United States. We're going to sell our assets. And it's in the billions, actually probably in the trillions. And because we don't really know the full accounting of what they have. Now, this is all part of the brainwashing, because really think about what they're telling us. They're telling us that for a very long time, there's 28 pages, and it implicates Saudi Arabia. Brainwash, brainwash. You think it's Saudi Arabia. You think it's Saudi Arabia. Now, at this point, they've already told you that it was Saudi Arabia, and it's in the 28 pages. Then, they keep going back and forth saying, we're going to release it, we're not going to release it. Now, Congress is ready to pass some legislation that's saying that we can go after these foreign nationals and go after different countries. Now, Saudi Arabia just admitted their guilt if they're going to counter with destroying the economy of the United States. Look what they're doing here right now. This is all an illusion to convince the American people that it was Saudi Arabia. Now, was Saudi Arabia involved in it? They might have had a hand in it, but it makes no sense why they would do this, because as they're showing, all they have to do is sell their assets and they'd be able to destroy the United States. They've become very, very wealthy with working with the United States at this point. So what is the reason all of this is coming out? Well, it's to take all our eyes off of the real perpetrators of who really did this. Because if you think about it, if this goes forward and Congress passes the legislation, the investigation is going to lead to places where the U.S. government doesn't want it to go. And this is why they've been using these 28 pages. I think this is a complete hoax, because once the corporate media jumps on it, once Saudi Arabia is brought into it saying, hey, we're going to destroy the economy if you do this, I mean, it makes no sense at this point to even release them, because Saudi Arabia is out there telling you that they're going to destroy the economy if the pages are released. So everything's already out in the open. So what are they really afraid of? They're not afraid of releasing the 28 pages. They're afraid of a real investigation, delving into what really happened, who is really responsible, and bringing those individuals to trial. Because if the legislation is passed, they can go after any foreign nation that might have been involved in this. They can go internally and launch an investigation to find out who in the United States was involved in this crime. And we see at this point, this is what they really don't want to happen. And this is why we're seeing the threats. Saudi Arabia was instructed to make this threat, because if this is passed and they have enough votes where the president can't veto this whatsoever, They will use an event to cover this up because they don't want this information coming out. And at this point, the economy might be destroyed at this point. We might see an event to go to war. Anything they possibly can do to take all eyes off of this. Remember, they're always afraid of the threat to their authority, to their power. They don't want that being brought down. So they will use anything they possibly can to cover up what they've done. And we've seen it in the past. I mean, this is nothing new. But I believe these 28 pages, the threat from Saudi Arabia at this time, this is a complete hoax. This is to take all eyes off what's really going on here. And it's being used to protect those who are really responsible for what happened in 9/11. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.